Hey, so glad to see you here. With my videos, I want to help you find joy in your life by creating art that will make you feel proud. And in today's video, I wanted to introduce you to gouache, a super fun art medium that gives you so many different options how you can express yourself. You might ask yourself, why gouache and what is gouache even? Gouache is a water-soluble paint that is also referred to as opaque watercolors because it can be used in a similar way. And the cool thing about this paint is that it dries quickly, matte and flat. Now keep in mind that there's also acrylic gouache that you can't reactivate with water, but in this video I'm going to use traditional gouache that you can. And because gouache offers you so many additional options compared to acrylics, oil or watercolors, I wanted to give you 3 techniques that you can try out to paint anything you want in 3 different styles. Now let's quickly talk about what art supplies you're going to need. You'll need brushes. I would recommend round synthetic brushes and also flat brushes for different effects. You'll also need watercolor paper that is a minimum of 300 GSM. And I know some of you might ask if you can also use a canvas for that. And the answer is you can't really use a regular canvas for gouache because you really need something that is absorbent. So if the canvas is made for watercolors or for anything that is a liquid and it needs to be absorbed into the canvas, then you can use it. But regular canvases don't really work. Then you will also need 2 glasses of water. 1 glass for rinsing the brushes and the other for clean water to work with. You'll also need a mixing palette. Now, even though you can reactivate gouache on your mixing palette, once it's dry, the consistency might not be the same when you do that, so I would rather use as much paint as I need. But I've also seen artists use a container with a lid, so when they're done painting or they need to take a break and they don't want the paint to dry, they just put the lid on top and it just keeps the paint wet. And of course, you also need paint itself. I'm using different brands such as Schminke and Winsor Newton, and I find that the designer gouache is a lot better compared to student grade gouache because it's a lot creamier right from the beginning and it doesn't dry streaky either. I know there's also gouache in pans, but I haven't tried it out yet myself, so if you have, let me know in the comments below. How are they? Are they worse than the normal regular gouache in tubes? Comment down below and let me know. Now the number 1 technique you want to practice and slowly master is the paint-water ratio so you can get the right consistency that's perfect for you. So for example, if you want to use gouache similar to watercolors or just want to create a light layer, then you want to dilute the paint with a lot of water. But if you want to create a more creamy texture that is opaque and looks bold on the paper and also flat, you only need just a little bit of water. Here you want to gradually dilute the paint until you feel like it's similar to whipped cream that is not too thick and not too drippy either. Now gouache can be used in so many different ways, and today I will show you 3 techniques. I will show you all these 3 techniques while painting a sunset because I just love painting sunsets. I just want to give you some ideas so you can try out with anything you want to paint. The first version is the more vector, bold like art. It is more abstract. Now here you can apply the paint in separate sections, one after another, just to create the base. Here I'm using a flat synthetic brush that helps me apply the paint evenly while creating sharp edges. And to add more details, I then go over the base using darker colors or additional lighter colors on top while keeping the brush strokes abstract. Now there are other ways how you can create very bold and flat paintings, so I will encourage you to look for gouache painting ideas to see how other artists are using this medium. The cool part of gouache is that you can paint from dark to light and from light to dark however you want and work on the painting as long as you want because you only need to wetten the paint on the paper. The second technique I want to show you is similar to oil, where you blend everything super neatly. For the second sunset, I basically use the same colors I pre-mixed for all 3 techniques, which are only 3 colors of the red, blue and yellow family that come in the basic sets for gouache. And instead of layering the paint in abstract shapes, I try to blend everything as much as possible so that the transition between the colors is very smooth. Since I also use a little bit more white, the colors look more pastel-like, which is another fun benefit of gouache. You can not only easily paint for as long as you want, you don't need additional stuff to paint with, and you can really play around with the style and the colors you can mix together by just using a limited color palette. So traditional gouache gives you a lot more flexibility compared to watercolors or acrylics, because acrylics, for example, dries really fast unless you use additional things that you can mix in to slow down the drying speed. The third technique I want to show you is the watercolor technique, where you dilute the paint with a lot of water to make everything super flowy and loose and very delicate. Because I wanted the third painting to look very smooth as well, I diluted the paint with lots of water and made sure to blend the colors very smoothly. When you use water, the colors become lighter and more delicate, so you can really create different moods in your art. So from very bold to very flowy, you can really experiment with anything you like. And I think gouache is so much fun to use because you can really let go of thinking about how exactly you need to behave, and you don't need to stress about how fast you need to paint, and you also don't need any additional mediums to dilute the paint or to slow down the drying process. It really gives you the chance to just paint and to have fun. I also used a mixture of the watercolor and the oil technique for this fluffy cloud that I shared on my Instagram, and it was so much fun to paint because I could play around with it and adjust things until I was happy with the result. So if you're familiar with watercolors, acrylics or oil, or if you're completely new to anything, I think it's such a fun medium to paint with. So if you want to learn how to paint with gouache, you can check out the videos right here. And if you have even more questions, comment down below and let me know. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!